Today I am working on our prompt for the week, which was lightning bugs, and bugs have lots of tiny details and I thought those could be tricky, so I decided that I was going to do a fun night scene with a bunch of lightning bugs floating around. For those that aren't familiar with the term lightning bugs, I didn't realize that it's not universal. Other people call them fireflies, but they glow in the night, and they come out in the summertime. They're fun to catch. And a lot of people will put them in jars. So I've seen some cute lightning bugs in jars. So today I'm actually going to pull out some paints and brushes for this one, so bear with me. It might be a little bit longer than my normal videos, but to create this effect, I needed to have some real paints today. So welcome in, everybody. Say hi. Feel free to chit chat in the comments. Let everybody know where you're from. Maybe you'll meet somebody that's also a rock painting fan in the group. So I've got one ready to go to do lightning bugs with, just because with acrylics they do take a bit longer to dry. I'm gonna try to get this so people joining in late know what we're doing. So that's normally why I do use the pens when I am doing my live videos, so you guys aren't stuck here with a lot of dry time, but I just needed the paints for this one. So I've got a dark blue, I've got black here, and white. Then I also have like a medium toned blue that I'm using as well. Now I like these paints. Some people, I have lots of the standard kind of paints you can get at the craft stores too, this style. But I have found that these thicker paints, they're a little bit more expensive, but in the long run I don't think they are, because you don't use a lot when you use them. Like, I probably am getting too much here, but I don't want to have to come back. Maybe we'll paint a second rock. I wanted to start with a clean palette though for you so that you could see. I've also got my brushes in water. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get them in frame, but maybe I can move my paper towel here in frame. But I've got 3 different style brushes sitting in water back here, and I'll show those to you. I've got a larger square tip brush, a small square tip brush, and then one kind of, I'm losing the term in my head, one that comes to more of a point in here. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started, and we're going to channel our inner Bob Ross. If you guys have watched my videos for a while, you know that I'm a huge Bob Ross fan. But a lot of these tips are things that you learn when you watch his videos. When you're creating a landscape type scene, you always want to start in the back and work your way forward onto the rock. So we're going to start in the very, very back of our rock and kind of layer things forward to kind of give this fun, like woods, effect where you can kind of see back into the woods a ways. So I'm going to take my larger square tip brush, and I'm just going to make sure I've got most of my water off, because I want to keep my paint pretty thick in the background. And we're going to start with some white, and we're just going to plop that right kind of down the center of our rock. We're going to have, maybe that's the moon line going down in the horizon. And don't worry, we're just kind of going to block out a little bit of color here first, and then we'll start blending it together. So just a little bit of white in the center there. I'm going to wipe off a little bit of the extra. We're going to go right into our brighter blue here. And I'm just going to block off some area here. Now, I didn't base coat my rock. If I base coated my rock, I probably wouldn't need as much paint for my bottom layer, but the base coated rocks I have some purple ones, and I didn't think that would work out so well. So we're going to go right into our darker blue here and put that on the edges here, but we're going to get rid of most of that. We just want it for blending purposes. Get that over here like so. We're going to get rid of most of this white. I'm not going to actually have white on here when we're all said and done. As you can see, most of it's faded away. I just wanted that white in there just so that we get some fun variations of color. And I'm going to dry most of the paint off my brush here. And I'm just going to kind of work the paint together a little bit here, right on my rock. We're just going to kind of blend them together. Most of this is going to be covered. It's just to give us that base backdrop. But see how that white kind of blends in, and you're going to lose most of the stark white. I'm just going to move that paint around, just to give us some different variations of hues in our deepest area of the woods back there. Just like that. Now, if you're really picky. You can go back and forth with color until, you know, if you want different variations of blue, but that is as simple as you can make it. The more you work paint, sometimes you'll end up pulling it back off the rock and things like that. So we've got that down. I'm just gonna go ahead and dunk that brush, get it rinsed off before I forget, and let it sit on the side. I use my pen so often you just replace a cap, you don't have to clean up, but I'm horrible about leaving my brushes around. So that's why I buy cheap brushes. All right, so we've got that down. We got to give that a little second to dry, but as you see in the background, we're just going to start adding the illusion of tree trunks in the back, and it's kind of hard to see on here, but you can kind of see them in there. See the little illusion of tree trunks in the back. So we're going to take and start with our lightest colors and work our way forward, darker and darker. My rock doesn't want to stay on my pen over there. So we're just going to take our brush. You want one that can come to a point when it's wet, like so, okay? And you can have your brush a little wet. If you're using a thicker style of paints, like this style of acrylic, they are going to be thicker. They are water-based, so you thin them out. You can simply use water to thin them out. We're just gonna kind of come between these two colors to get our first one. You're just gonna come in here, add the water that's on your brush into your paint, like so, and kind of blend them together. I just blend right on my surface. There's a few streaks of different colors in there. That's okay if you want to add a little bit of this blue in there, you know, just because the hue might be a little off. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to get a little tad more water and blend it right in there because we're going to need a little bit more because we're going to use a little bit for our branches, a little bit for our ground. There we go. And just as you see, like, once you're done blending, just take and kind of give your brush a little bit of a spin on the tip. That way you're nice and pointed. Sorry, I was off to the wrong side. Little spin on the tip, and that way you've got a better point when you go onto your rock. Now the background trees aren't going to go all the way to the base. We're going to slowly work ourselves forward. So they're going to live, you see, hear that? They're going to live, I told you I watched a lot of Bob Ross, out here somewhere in the distance. And we're just going to very lightly put our brush down and pull them up. And you're just going to add a few. And you're only going to be able to paint a few with each one. You have to have the patience. Go back and get some more paint. Just pull it up wherever you want to live. You know, if you want to be Bob Ross-esque, you got to at least put two together everywhere you go because the little trees need their friends. And we're just going to add a bunch of trees here in the background. And you can give them a few branches if you want. And if you are really want to get super detailed, you can get an even smaller brush, a liner brush, and add in branches. But for now, I'm just going to kind of place them down. The lighter you press your brush, the skinnier you're going to get. If you start pushing down hard, you'll get thicker trunks like that one there. I pressed down a little harder, but just barely touch your rock. You can pull a few branches off to the sides if you want to, just like that. A lot of these are going to end up covered up anyways. You just want them because they're going to peek through your final rock a little bit in the background, just like so. Okay. And then you're going to take your smaller square tipped brush, and my paint's off to the side here, there we go. And you're just going to go right into that same paint. We're going to pull the paint on it smooth first. We're going to probably need a little more paint, my brush was a little wet. We're just going to pull that paint on here, like so. And we're going to create land under these trees. So you want to butt right up underneath where you put those stumps, and you're just going to go right across, and you're going to just kind of pull it down. And it's okay if you don't go all the way down here because this is going to be filled in with something else. So make sure you get some more paint on there. And we're going to pull from the other side and just create that land. And you don't have to have a super steady hand because land's not flat, right? I can always tell when I do these videos earlier in the morning and my coffee's still in my system. There we go. So we've got our land. If you have a few trees that don't quite meet, that's okay because we're going to actually give this land some texture next. So we're going to go right back into our paint. Make sure we've got enough color on our brush. And now this time we're going to kind of push into the paint a little bit. Might need a little bit more water on my brush. And I'm going to make a little bit more color here. Go push into that, grab some more of this dark, and kind of push it into the brush like so. So it's really in those bristles. I'm going to come in here and just add the illusion of some leaves on these branches up here, and we're just going to kind of pat, 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 pat. And I'm a little wet, so if you get a little wet, you won't quite get the little bristly edges that you're looking for. And now these won't show up all that much because they're going to be kind of close to your background color. They'll show up along the edges a little bit more. But like I said, this is all about layering. You're going to do the same thing here right along your base too. You can kind of put in, whoop, I got some white on there. Kind of put in some ground. Oh, that's all right. Maybe a little highlight snuck in through the trees there. I'm going to just kind of go along the ground like so, because you never see ground that's super smooth like that. And you can kind of get up to those trees if you had a trunk that didn't quite make it all the way in, just like that. And here, I'll pull that in so you can kind of see. Hopefully it comes into focus. There we go. So you see, you kind of get this texture along your ground line so that it doesn't look super perfect like that. You can kind of just tap, tap, tap. And the natural shape of the bristles will kind of give you those little lines on there. Now we're going to kind of continue this same process. We're just going to slowly get our colors darker and darker. I did 3 layers, I believe, on each of these. So I'm just going to take my liner brush and we're just going to go right back into my water so that I've got some liquid to kind of create my next color. So I'm not going to use as much white, but we're going to work right in the same area. So I'm going to pull some of this blue and a nice chunk of this blue in here and work it together here. Now if you're using your really, really, really nice brushes, you can mix your paint with something else, but these brushes are not super expensive, so I'm not really worried about getting too much paint in there. So we're going to go like this and just kind of spin our brush in there. I've got quite a bit of paint up on there, so I'm just going to kind of wipe some of it off on the side. We can just spin our brush in there in a second. So we're going to spin our brush. So we get our point on there. There we go. So we've got our little point, and we're going to just go. Now this layer of trees is going to drop a little bit closer, because the closer you get, the taller the trees are going to appear to the eye. Now if you're working at home, you could let your paint dry just a little bit longer in between layers. But for the sake of the live, I don't really have a very good point there. For the sake of the live, we're just going to go right in. Sometimes, there we go. So we're going to go right in. So we're going to start about halfway down the hill here and put in our first little tree, like so. Oh, maybe I wiped up too much paint. Like that. Just start adding in your next layer of trees. Like so. Now I do try to kind of go in between the trees I've placed, but don't overthink it. There's lots of trees in the forest. Some of them can be thick, some can be thinner. But again, the lighter touch you use, the thinner you'll be able to keep it. You can add little branches onto them too. Hopefully I'm staying in frame. Sorry guys, this is another reason the pens work really good for the lives. It's a little bit harder to paint with a brush when you're holding your rock. I've probably got it, you know, a good foot from my body so that I can keep it under my camera. But I think it'll be just fine. Like so. And the closer you get, the more details you can add in your trees, because these ones will show a little bit more. And I cannot read the comments when I'm painting like this, guys, so if you know answers to questions you're seeing, feel free to jump in. I always come back and read the comments right after, and at the very end I'll take a second and see if you guys have any questions. You can just hold them till the end here. And let's get this guy, maybe a little guy right here. All right, so once you've got your next layer of trees on there, you can put as many or as few as you want. There we go. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our square tip brush, take off the extra paint. We're going to go right in here in the color we've got. And we're going to create our land. So you're going to go right under this layer of trees and give some land. This side over here, give some land. There you go. And again, if you're working at home on these, you can really let the paint set in between layers a little bit on these. And then we're going to go right into our brush and really push that paint into the brush here. And add some tops to our trees here. So again, you're kind of just pressing into the rock a little bit when you're doing this so that it kind of doesn't leave a straight, perfect looking piece. And it also will give you little variations of color. And see how that first layer of trees just kind of got pushed back into the forest a little bit? Like so. There we go. Just like that. And sorry, the sound effects are a natural thing. I don't know if it's because I have kids or because I watch too much Bob Ross. But he always means when you're pushing your brush in. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing right along the edge of the ground here. Just really soft and gentle. Here, I'll pull that a little closer. Let it come in focus here. Just really soft and gentle. Kind of press, 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 press. Like that along your surface. Just gives those little grass and bushes. And, oh, need a little more paint here. A place to live. Like so. All right, one more layer to go. There we go. We'll get that in there. There we go. If you watch the ocean one, it kind of reminds me of the ocean one a little bit where you're pulling that color forward and forward. So every layer you're doing pushes back the layer behind it. So it gives it that deeper look. And I'm trying to make my layers a little bit more contrasting than I did on my first one because I feel like it kind of will make it pop even more. So last layer, guys. If you're just joining in, I'm glad you guys are joining in. This one's a little bit longer because I'm going with acrylic paints today. A lot of times I use my pens to expedite, but I really wanted to show this fun way to create this effect. Okay, so the last layer we're going to do here, we're going to use a lot of darkness to it to give it that silhouette look that, you know, that lights all the way behind these trees. So we're going to go in, like I said, get a little bit of water on your brush, so because we're going to be mixing our paints. And I'm just going to go straight into this dark blue with a good amount of black. So we're just going to mix right here on our palettes, this dark blue and black together. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of this blue just because it has a different shade to it. And we want to carry that hue. Even though it seems really dark, a little bit of that hue might show through. So we're going to go like this and spin a little bit here. Get this paint mixed on our tip. Now, of all the layers, your top layer, these black tree trunks, or super dark tree trunks, you'll want to pay attention to what you're doing on these most because these ones are going to be your forefront on your rock. So again, spin to get a nice tip on your brush. As you can see, like I said, I don't buy super expensive brushes. If you have really nice brushes, they'll probably come to even better point than this. You do want your layers to dry in between. Acrylics take a little bit longer. They still don't take too much time, but we're going to go ahead and go at it. So if you're working at home, give your layers plenty of time to dry in between, okay? Now we're going to dip our paint just about every single stroke on this one so we can be very intentional with our tree trunks here. So again, we're spinning our brush right in our paint, trying to get a good tip. And a very light touch when you put on your rock. Now we're going to go about halfway down our hill again, and we're going to start planting in our trees. And we're just going to very light touch. You can always add more paint. This top layer, you can't take it away. I mean, you can go back in and touch up with your lighter colors, but if you're blending as you go through, it's hard to recreate colors once they're gone to match perfectly. So just take your time, get fresh paint each time around, spin it, and place your trees. Now I always like to do my outside trees first, and so that I kind of get a feel for how the paint is laying down. Sometimes you'll find, depending on how much water is in your paint, is how it will kind of flow. Once you've got an idea of how it's mixed, you can kind of go in and do your trees that are going to be in the middle. So we're just going to work our way all the way across the tree here, or the base of the rock here. Adding in trees. You can have little ones, big ones, whatever you want to put in. We'll go in and add some more branches to each of them once we get all of our trunks placed in. And you can kind of let the brush kind of bounce a little bit back and forth. Don't worry about making straight lines. I don't know. I mean, there are some trees that grow really straight, but not a lot. Oops. There we go. And it's okay to go right on top of the trees that you've got down already as well. Don't worry about avoiding them. Trees don't all grow uniform when they're in a forest like this. So you have a couple closer together, like so. Now, if you want to add a little bit of water to your brush, you can. When you're going to go in and do your smaller branches, it kind of thins out the paint. It will allow you to lay it down a little bit thinner. You don't want to do a lot because then it will water down the paint, but you can kind of play around with it. Add in some little branches here and there. Okay, that one, I think we're pretty good here. Obviously, you can add in a lot more if you want to, just until you like the look of it. I'm going to add a few more little branches here, pulling up from the trunks. All right. Okay, so we've got this main one here, I think. If you feel like it's not dark enough, you can try to go back over. This is my main front one, and he's a little skinny, so we're going to go right over the line. We'll thick him up just a little bit. Okay, that's the last you're going to use that brush, so go ahead and rinse it out. There we go. Now we're going to go into our flat square brush, and we're going to really, remember, we're going to load it up first. We're going to do our land first. So just kind of back and forth, get loaded up with paint. And we're going to go along the bottom of our trees, and this one we're going to carry to the bottom of our rock, like so. Go ahead and fill in the bottom of your rock there, like that. And see how that just pushed that whole layer of trees back? That whole layer of trees just got pushed back. That's a little bit flat for me. I don't like super flat ground, so we're going to kind of give it some more bumps. There we go. Just like so. Now we're going to load up our brush, really dab, dab, dab it in there. We want a lot of texture coming off the tip of our brush on our trees and on our ground. So very carefully pick up your rock, and we're going to go in. I can't. If you notice, I always go at the same angle. I try to kind of use the same angle when I do things because it makes things work more universal for me. And we're just going to go in and put in our trees again. Just kind of, we're going to push into the rock because it kind of creates this texture like leaves. You'll have little bristles that will push your leaves out in different directions. Now you don't want to completely cover your other layers underneath. You can usually see through trees, you know, into the forest a little bit. You see those other layers back there, just like so. I had that area right there I didn't care for, so we're gonna put in some little leaves there. We might add another branch. All right, push back into your paint. I'm gonna do the same thing along the bottom here. Give it a little bit of texture. There we go, just like that. And we're gonna set him down to dry. Now I gotta add one more branch. See, I added that little tree back there. This is a little guy. He doesn't look like he's connected to that one. So let's go right back in with our liner. We're gonna give him a little stump. There we go. Let's give a little stump. There we go. Maybe a little branch. There he is. That's my little baby tree in the forest, right? Rinse that back off. Okay, now this needs to dry all the way before you start going in and adding lightning bugs. Now I started doing lightning bugs using a toothpick and dabbing, and it was frustrating to me to go back and forth to the paint each and every time. If you have to use that method, go for it. You can use pins, pin tips. You can use, if you have dotting tools, use dotting tools. But as you all know, I love my pens, and it's just a heck of a lot easier to use pens. So I've got another one here. This one ended up a little bit darker, so you know, I like the one that we did today a little bit better. I like having that light peering through at the top. I kind of missed that on this one here. So trial and error, you know, it's one of those things. The more of them you do, you'll kind of find techniques you like. But it's as simple as adding in your dots to give your forest your lightning bugs. And a lot of them will come in little clusters. If you make the dots bigger, those ones will seem closer to you. So you can just start. I started with little dots and kind of just filled in little clusters here and there, because a lot of times they'll come in groups. When we go out to the country, sometimes you'll see them like so. And to do bigger dots, all you do is, so for the little ones, you really dab fast or barely even touch the rock. For a bigger one, you would just kind of dab and hold the paint on there a second longer. And kind of dab in the same place. It will make that circle a little bit bigger, like so. And you can just put lightning bugs anywhere you want them to live. And sometimes if you go deep in the forest, you'll just see lots of them, like so. So thank you for everybody that stuck around on this seemingly long video. I don't know how long that took, but I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I really hope you give this a try. It's not as difficult as you might think. It's just all about layering, and really to get that effect, you just really got to layer. So I'll add lightning bugs to this one and share it in the comments once it's dry. And I hope you give this one a try. Now, I didn't get to read comments. If anybody has any questions, you can throw them up real quick now. I will read through and see if I can find any. Yes, Kaya, yes, I like the different sizes of dots. It also helps with that perspective that we're kind of going for. It's forced perspective. When something's bigger, it really makes it feel like it's closer, like you can reach out and grab a couple of them right in front of you. So if you want other inspiration for rocks this week, you can go to our prompt and see what's been left behind. The yellow Posca that I used was the 1M, the extra fine tip. So you could use that. I suggest that one. If you go to the bigger size, you might have a hard time getting the nice tiny dots. So thanks again for everybody that was watching, and if you're catching the replay, I appreciate it. Make sure that you hit turn on notifications to see more live videos, or subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.